Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this session. Rihanna Iskandar listening tour. I see people are still joining. Welcome back from that traditional dance. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yes. So we have Mariana Iskandar on the panel. Reda, we have Joffrey, Katerega, we have Joy, we have Bobby, who is yet to join, and Kelly Foster, who will be our trust and safety in this session. Welcome, Mariana, to Wiki Indaba. You've been working in Africa for 10 years and have been connecting with community members on your listening tour. I know this is not your first stop. What is already emerging as your vision for Africa in the Wikimedia movement, as you give us a brief introduction of who Mariana is?
Hi, Irina. Thank you so much for having me. Can I just check that you can hear me clearly before I keep talking? Is it fine? Okay.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Well, as you said, my name is Mariana Iskander. I'm the incoming CEO of the Wikimedia Foundation. I actually started my life on the northern tip of the African continent, born in Cairo, Egypt. My family emigrated to the United States. I grew up in Texas mostly, studied in the United States and also in the United Kingdom. And as you said, I have been living on the southern tip of the continent now for the last decade, working in South Africa. My home is in Johannesburg, running a youth employment accelerator called Harambe. We focus with the private sector and government and civil society and with young people on tackling, as many of you know, the very difficult issues of youth unemployment on the continent. I'll be joining the foundation in January of 2022. So taking the time now to do exactly what you've said. Listen, try to learn, understand the opportunities, the challenges, the stories of Wikimedians all over the world. I began actually on day one meeting the Wikimedia South Africa chapter. They were kind enough to meet me pretty much the day after I started or the week after I was announced. And since then have had events with Wikimedians representing North Africa, East Africa, different language communities on the continent, the many Wikimedians of the year that we celebrate from the African continent. And I'll also be engaging with the foundation staff who are from Africa next week, as well as some of the partners that we've had in the work of the movement from Africa. The only thing that I'll say is that the stories that I've heard so far have been really quite powerful, trying to understand why people are motivated by the work of this broader movement, how they show up in their communities. And while it's true, there's quite a lot of differences by region, by project, by language community, I also have been trying to find the things that keep us all in a shared movement and a shared vision around access, around information, around empowerment. So that's what I would say has been the start. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be at Wiki Indaba. Thank you for making the time for me in the program. And thank you for offering to have this session so that I can listen and learn a bit more.
Thank you, Mariana, for that wonderful introduction. And as I said, this is a listening tour, so Mariana is here to listen to everyone, and this is going to be a discussion. On stage, we have Bobby Shabangu from South Africa. I would like to ask Bobby, could you tell us about interesting projects that are happening in the southern part of Africa? But before you could tell us, I would like the viewers to know that you can post questions under the Q&A tab. There is the Etherpad on the program. You can raise hands and you'll be selected to be added on stage when it's time to speak. So as we listen from the people on stage, just prepare your questions, prepare to raise your hands and come on and also join the discussion. So Bobby, tell us about the interesting projects that are happening in the Southern Africa.
Thank you so much, Arina, and everyone, and for this opportunity. And you've correctly actually mentioned that my name is Bobby. I think it's very great to first introduce myself. My name is Bobby Shabangu from South Africa, and I am the current sitting president of the Wikimedia South African chapter. And basically, what we're doing as a chapter is to advocate, is to support, first of all, Wikipedians. And yesterday I was explaining a bit, about what we consider as Wikipedians in the South African chapter. And this basically for us is the people that are reading Wikipedia and those ones that are contributing to the content of Wikipedia. And with regards to the traditional Wikipedians who are contributing to Wikipedia, there are several projects that we are doing as a chapter, and there are those projects that are done, outside of the chapter, but that we are endorsing and we are also supporting as a chapter. One of the, perhaps just to go back a bit, one of the things that we have been doing, from the start of the chapter was first to organize the people, in the chapter to see, in South Africa, what when we're talking about Wikipedians, especially those ones that are contributing, the active Wikipedians, who are we talking about? So we then decided to run a survey and to find out who is actually, contributing on Wikipedia. And what we find out there was, very interesting, but would not be interesting to most people who are here. Currently, South Africa has close to 70 million people, and the majority of them, the African people, Black people, and a very small number of white people are living in forms part of the South African population. But the survey showed us, otherwise. The results of the survey was a contrast to the reality of what you see in the ground. We find out that most of the people that are actually contributing on Wikipedia are white males who are in the tech, industry, and there's not a lot of people really that are interested. Most of them are male, and there was very scant, females, and even more death in the number of females, that were contributing towards, the Wikimedia, towards who are forming part of the community and who are contributors of Wikipedia.
Oh, so we lost Bobby there, but I'm sure he'll be back. Let me introduce Joy from Ghana. Joy, could you tell us about projects happening in West Africa? And if you're from West Africa, as Joy speaks, you're free to also note down some of those wonderful things you're doing in the chat. You're free to raise your hand at any moment. You'll be able to join stage and also talk about your project you're doing in West Africa. Yes, Joy, you can introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Joy Ajapon from the city of Accra, Ghana. and I've been a Wikimedian for the past 5 years now. The first 4 years of my role as a Wikimedian, I led some leadership positions with Open Foundation West Africa. That is where I started. And I found myself in diverse Wikimedia communities based on the level of interest I have and then the focus area of each user group. So currently, I am the team lead for Wiki initiative. It's just a group of people, Wikimedians, who are interested in supporting ad hoc members to contribute to Wikimedia in different aspects. So mostly when it comes to advocacy, because of my background, I really love youth advocacy. I love to support people who are interested in SDGs because I also have an NGO that focuses on environmental education for the youth. So as a Wikimedian, I thought it was to contribute my quota, free time, that's why it's called the Wiki Initiative, to bring together individuals or advocates who have a skill or two and they want to contribute to the online digital platform like Wikimedia. So for Africa, what's happening in parts of Africa is that there's been lots of campaigns running, lots of contribution, like I said, um, based on particular themes and interests. That's the only way we are able to draw attention and bring a lot of people to contribute because what a journalist will be interested in is different from what a scientist will be interested in. Everyone's interest is quite different. So I really appreciate what the West African group is really doing. And I want to add that thankfully, Wikimedia Group in Ghana, recently a user group that's the Gaban Wikimedians, were able to get certified because now they have a huge community that is easily translating articles into their local languages. So for that aspect of the northern part of Ghana, it's going very well. And from my side, we've been able to contribute to Wiki for climate initiatives that started last year. We've also able to contribute to Wiki for human rights. And currently we're working on the Wiki for inclusion, where we are looking at those who have issues with hearing impaired. And thankfully that collaboration has been like an eye opener because we realized that after we approached these institutions, the leaders were very much excited. They were wondering how we could looking to find them, but they were not important. But they really welcomed us, and we saw a lot of contribution from that angle. Although it was difficult because you have to let the sign interpreter do his thing, you have to listen to you, and that kind of level of communication was quite tough. But then their interest, their enthusiasm, and what they have done so far is remarkable. So, aside all the campaigns that's happening in West Africa, competitions and contributions, I see a lot of diversity and I see a lot of inclusion. And I think hopefully there's more ahead of us. So, if anyone's in the West African region who wants to also add that, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you so much about that update. And I see Bobby. Bobby is back on the call. Yeah, Bobby, I know you left us hanging. You still had some things you were telling us. You do have a question from Eugene who's asking, I would like to hear a little more from Bobby. What was WMZA's approach to the survey? What tools did you use? What tools did you use? Whose help did you make use of to administer the survey? Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And colleagues, you know, with our situation in South Africa and load shedding, I don't want to get into details of that anyway. So anyway, the tools that we really used were the ones that were available. In fact, what we did really was to reach out to other communities to see how they did surveys in the past. Basically, what you'd want to do is to go on Meta and then check, the active Wikipedians. There are tea houses there, and you'd also want to use to check your mailing list, to see how many people are active there. And one of the advices we've got was that we need to be as simple as possible when you're running the survey and not have a lot of questions. Really, we need to look at the key questions that we want to use in order to get what we want, the results that we want. So basically, we use Google Forms basically when we were sending out the survey, and in terms of looking at the people that were going to participate, really it was the mailing list, it was the Meta, it was also social media as well. And I think we ran this for something like 3 months, 3 to 4 months, just to get as much word is out there about the survey. And basically, yeah, that's what it told us. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but that's it.
Yeah, I think you did answer the question. Although you were still continuing and telling us about your projects before you were cut off by that load
Yeah.
shedding monkey. Can you continue from where you
Sure.
stopped?
Yeah, just briefly, without going into more details, the projects that we are running in the country in the Wikimedia chapter, really they advocate for a few things based on that survey. In fact, we then made a decision, a conscious decision, that we are going to start projects that are aimed towards activating new users. That's number one. And then number two, we don't consider a Wikipedian someone that only writes on the computer or on Wikipedia, but the readers of Wikipedia are also Wikipedians to us, And then looking at the population of South Africa, we currently have something somewhere around 70 million now. We are going to 70 million. So, but looking at the number of Wikipedians, the people that are contributing in there, they are contrast to what you see, in reality. So the projects that really we have been running since I joined the chapter, they've been really skewed towards that thinking that we need to run projects really that are gonna bring new users, that gonna raise awareness about Wikipedia itself, and that are gonna raise awareness about the fact that Wikipedia is available in people's languages, not only the English Wikipedia. So and projects that are increasing the South African content in particular. One project that I can mention that I was part of, that was exciting as well, was the Joburgpedia project. And that project entailed working with galleries, climate institution, really. It was the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation. And there, what they had was the archives of the history of Johannesburg, the pictures of the old buildings of Johannesburg. And what had happened also was that the city of Johannesburg itself became our partner, because they sponsored some of the plaques that we used. So the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation, they identify a building, and then after that, they write just a brief history on a plaque about that building. And then what we did on our end as the Wikimedia South Africa was to put a QR code there that will link directly to the Wikipedia page about that building. So basically, all the plaques are all around the city of Johannesburg right now. If you want to, see them, there's a route actually. In fact, some couple of routes that are following the plaques of those historical buildings, and you can just go there, and then you can just see the brief history of the building, and you can take your phone and scan on that QR code, and then it directs you to the Wikipedia page of that building. So that was one of the projects that we've done in order to boost the content, South African content about Wikipedia. And I can mention many others that we've run over the years, but all of them, they have the ethos that we need to increase South African content. We need to activate new users, especially females, Black females, and we need to also increase South African languages. So our themes when we are running projects are basically around that. When we are thinking that what kind of projects are we going to run, first we think about those gaps first, and then after that we say, okay, fine, there's a need for us to increase content that is South African about the LGBTQ community in South Africa. Which claim institution that advocates for the LGBTQ that we can reach out to, and then we go to Iziko, and then that was the latest project that we've done. And then they then provide us with a huge community, you know, of the LGBTQ, and then we choose themes. We work with them to choose the themes of the notable, topics that we can add on Wikipedia, and we activate them. We raise the awareness, and basically that's how we run our projects without going into details by projects. Thanks, over to you.
Thank you, Bobby. I like the project about scanning the QR codes, and I think we saw something like that in Tunisia at the last Wiki Indaba 2019, maybe, or maybe it was the one before that. Bobby, we have a question from Kelly. Is a report of the survey available?
Oh yes, yeah, it is available. I can send it to you now, but yeah, while we are talking about this, you know, I'll copy the link and paste it there so that people see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So before we go to the next speaker, Joy, someone asked, you mentioned that you belong to several user groups as a member. Can a Wikimedian from Uganda also be a member of the Ghana or Nigerian user group? What is the criteria for this? That's for you, Joy. Okay, so Joy, can you hear us? Oh, okay.
Yes, I can. Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Joy, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I've seen the question, and well, I would say, from my point of view, I would say yes, you can, in terms of collaboration wise, because I know that we've had some level of cross collaborations with AfroCrowd, Nigeria, and other institutions that are interested in what Wikimedia does. So if you want to be part of a member of the user group, I'm part of the Wikimedia for Sustainable user group as well. And I mean, I contribute to things related to their theme. If it's a campaign, I contribute. And recently there was this competition we had on Wiki for human rights. We had some participants from Egypt and Nigeria. And I mean, that was an important part because we realized that there's some of the contributions they made were very relevant. And I think that if you want to be a member of any user group, you can. I don't know if other user groups have certain rules and regulations on who becomes a member or not, but then basically it's hinged on how active you are and how much interested you are in their activities. If anyone can add anything, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Joy. I think your answer did suffice. I would like to head over to North Africa and introduce Reda, or have Reda introduce himself and tell us about the interesting projects in North Africa. Welcome, Reda.
Hello, thank you, Irina. As Irina said, my name is Reda. I'm from Algeria, and I will go through all the user groups and community in North Africa, starting from Morocco to Egypt, passing through Algeria and Tunisia. This year, the main project in North Africa is saving the cultural heritage of the North Africa. For example, if we talk about Tunisia, we have seen that the Tunisians have done a lot of things to the Kasbah of Tunis. If we talk about some other user groups from Morocco and Tunisia, they have launched a project to save the cultural heritage in Libya, and the Algerian user groups and the Algerian Wikimedians have just finished Wiki Arabia. Maybe you have seen some video from it, and now we in the Algerian community we have a song for Wikipedia. We will share it with you later. Also, we have worked a lot on the indigenous language in North Africa. For example, the Moroccan Wikimedia started some language projects such as the Wikipedia in Tashlhit and in Darija, who is the Arabic variant of Morocco. The Wikimedians of Tamazight user group who work on the promotion of cultural of the culture and the Tamazight language have also launched the Tashawit Wiktionary, who is the first language community to create a project on this language other than Wikipedia. So we have started not with Wikipedia but with the Wiktionary, and it is very helpful to the newbies because the Wiktionary is more friendly than Wikipedia sometimes. The rest of the North African community was active this 2 months on the Katib Mektub project. This Katib Mektub project is an editorial contest about the writers who write in Arabic languages. This contest started in Dubai and come to North Africa through the Arabic Wikipedia. I can just add something about our main challenges in this year is to have more permanent contributors in the Tamazight language and to have more events in this part of the world. We are now discussing about a big meeting relating the indigenous languages of North Africa. We believe that we can do this event in person one day. I believe maybe for the next year we will do this kind of event. Thank you.
Thank you, Reda. I like this discussion. I see in all regions, even if it's different projects, I see a focus on people, a focus on the viewers, on the readers, like what do they need? So I really like that kind of discussion. You can give us your feedback in the chat, what's happening in your regions too. Let's listen to Geoffrey as he tells us about what's happening in the East African region. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irina. I think with East Africa, the very first thing I can highlight is Wiki Indaba as one of the most important things, because we are hosting Wiki Indaba this year, and it's a huge opportunity for us to join with the rest of Africa. We're supposed to have this conference in Kampala and welcome everyone here, but we moved this online, and we are lucky that although it's a virtual conference now, we are able to get more people to join the conference. And I think the good thing with Wiki Indaba, and kudos to the Wiki Indaba steering committee, is that it moves from one region to the other. It has happened in Southern Africa, in West Africa. Now it is in East Africa. Maybe one time it will go to Northern Africa as well. Actually, it has been to Tunisia already. So it has moved to all different regions, and we are happy to be hosting it this year. But basically talking about which projects are interesting in Eastern Africa, I can first of all mention the language, different local language Wikipedias. So we do have the Swahili Wikipedia. We do have the Kinyarwanda Wikipedia. We do have the Luganda Wikipedia in Uganda. So I think these local language Wikipedias are a good opportunity for us to be able to write in local languages as we try to build Wikipedia and the related projects. So in this meeting, I know we have people from also Rwanda and Tanzania here joining, and Kenya from the region. So yeah, we are doing this collaboratively. Actually, in 2019, we had the first ever kind of Eastern Africa meeting. It was during the strategy discussions. We have had the strategy discussion for Eastern Africa, where we got people from all over Eastern Africa, and we were in Kampala for 2 days discussing, the strategy, what we want to see happen with the movement towards the 2030 vision, which was good for us. Yeah, but specifically talking about Uganda as a user group here, we also do several projects. There's one which we are very proud of, which is called Wikipedia for Refugees. Uganda is a country that hosts over 1.3 million refugees, and we are working with them here, to build content about these refugee settlements, because there's not much documented about them. We also love in Uganda contributing to the photographic competitions. So Wiki Loves Africa, Wiki Loves Monuments, Wiki Loves Earth. We also do gender and diversity projects. So we have participated in WikiGap, which is towards decreasing the gender gap on Wikipedia. We have participated in Wiki Loves Women. So these are different activities that we do in addition to Wiki for Human Rights. So as we grow the community, we look at some of these interesting projects, some of which we participate in, and others which are locally initiated in Uganda. So those are some of the interesting projects, and I would encourage my colleagues from Eastern Africa, feel free to raise your hand and also join the discussion to share what's happening in your country. Thanks, Irina.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Thank you, Geoffrey. So in the chat, I saw we mentioned that actually the only region Wiki Indaba has not been is Central Africa. So you know yourselves. Please look out to host the next Wiki Indaba. And yeah, Selas, we hope the pandemic would have ended and it will be an in-person kind of conference where we'll meet each other again. Mariana, Douglas is welcoming you to the movement. He says, I like the fact that one of the topics you're passionate about is youth unemployment on the continent. Are there any current or future efforts within the movement to solve this problem? I don't know, since you haven't yet joined, but yeah, that's a question for you, Mariana.
Sorry, Irina, the question is about solutions in the movement, our movement, I assume. Let me just see. Within the movement too. Just, can you help me see the rest of the question, Irina, or just say it to me?
I like the fact that one of the topics you're passionate about is youth unemployment on the continent. Yeah. Are there any current or future efforts within the movement to solve this problem?
I mean, I'll offer a few quick reflections, but would welcome feedback from the speakers or participants in the chat. I mean, I've learned already that in some ways, this is a movement that reflects the nature of societies across the world. And the realities of the societies in which we live finds its way into our conversations, our challenges, and our barriers. There's no doubt that the youthfulness of the African continent ought to be an important asset for the work that we do. The idea of open access to information. I've heard such powerful stories from African Wikimedians about entering this movement because they found the content and information on the wikis so useful for their further studies or for their ability to share information with others. I also feel like the issue of diversity that many of the speakers have already brought up comes from our young people. I mean, I often say in the current work that I'm doing, if we can get the old people out of the way and let the young people lead us, you know, it's likely we'll find more diverse solutions. It's likely we might find better solutions. And it's a topic that's come up in regions all over the world. Where is the participation of the next generation, and how can we tackle that? Maybe the last point in response to Douglas's question is that my current work has certainly taught me that no big societal challenge can ever be solved by one organization alone or one group of people alone. Finding collaborations, coalitions, partnerships, ways of leveraging others is the only way to tackle any of the big issues that face us as a movement, as a society, as a community. And I think that trying to understand how that applies in the Wikiverse is going to be an area that I'm obviously also very interested in.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback to Douglas. Mariana, while you're on stage, what is the thread that you see from the work that you have just heard about and relating to your expertise and experience in Africa?
I mean, I've loved listening to the speakers because so much of what's been shared resonates for me. I think that the idea of how to create awareness in communities in localized ways is so critical for how people get involved. And I've heard even before Wiki Indaba, what are these models and how can we learn from them in different contexts in Africa and to share in other parts of the world. I want to go back to this issue of diversity in every way, diversity of perspective, communities, age, participation, and ensuring that this is, you know, the sum of all human knowledge is for everybody. And so how do you find ways that people can share their own stories and tell their own stories? The third point, which really ties to something Joy said, is, you know, I'm thinking a lot about the issues of sustainability of the people that are in the movement, of communities, frankly, of the planet, as we sit here with global leaders having those debates at the moment. And I think that the questions of what does sustainability look like for our current volunteers. So I've heard in other communities about challenges around burnout and challenges around getting enough new blood and new energy and new people to participate. I think the sustainability of communities in terms of, are they growing? Are there ways we can see the impact of the efforts that we're making? And I think that certainly from the perspective of the African continent, I think the questions of sustainability at a global level are actually quite central and quite important for us to be shaping and managing. The last point is a small point substantively, but I think actually quite important for the year ahead. And it ties to something that Reda said, which is, it's hard to predict how the world is going to open up or not open up or stay open. I think anybody who wants to guess what's going to happen with the pandemic, good luck to them. I'm not going to guess what's going to happen with the pandemic. So maybe we'll see that it's easier to travel and it'll be easier for people to meet in person. I've heard that the virtual format has absolutely increased participation in the wiki events everywhere, that this has given so many people who would not have been able to travel in person an opportunity to participate and an opportunity to contribute. My hypothesis is that we should try to figure out what good hybrid events will look like in the future, so that as people do come together, maybe there are also ways that others can participate virtually. I think everybody in the world will be figuring this out, but I hope we can get ahead of that game, given how important convenings are and have been, I think, for the social fabric of the movement and of communities. So thinking together and learning from each other, I'm sure different regions, different communities might try different things. You know, what is the format that allows people to maintain the cohesion and the connection that has been so important in the history of in-person gatherings, but at the same time, not lose, I think, the accessibility and openness that the virtual format has also provided for us in this pandemic. So just a few, I think, reflections, Irina, in response to the question.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Mariana. And I did pick out the issue of sustainability. But before I come back to that issue of sustainability. Chris from Uganda and people in the chat I see are rallying for Central Africa to host. So I'm even seeing Cameroon being put out there. So I'm just saying, Cameroon, I'm just saying. Yeah, and there's a question for Geoffrey, still from Chris. From your beautiful sharing of the past and ongoing projects, for instance, Wiki Loves Monuments, can we now look at the possibility to partner with museums, art and galleries to host exhibitions of such wonderful pictures?
Thank you for the question, Chris. So one of the projects actually we are doing in Uganda is also projects around GLAM, that is galleries, libraries, arts and museums. And in this project, we work with librarians, with museums in Uganda to generate content, because they already have this content, but it's not in the kind of the open space. And what we do in these projects is to work with the librarians, with the people, the custodians at the museums, to train them on how to use Wikipedia. And yeah, my colleague Alice, who is leading on this in Uganda, has done a lot of work. So yeah, Carissa would love to do that. And I think one of the things that also can be done is to use Wikipedia and commons and dated projects as ways to promote tourism in the country, because I've seen museums. We don't have that in Uganda yet, but if someone visits a museum and there is a QR code on an article in the museum, which pulls up a Wikipedia page, it already provides a lot of information about that item for people to read. So yeah, we are already doing this, and we can look into more partnerships with you, Chris, around museums. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. And today there will be a virtual tour of the Uganda Museum, so do look out for it on the schedule. So I would like to go back to some of the points that Mariana raised when she talked about what is the sustainability of the people, talked about issues of burnout that we have seen in communities. And I know that people on this panel or on this stage have been in the movement for some time. Yeah. So I would like to ask, what motivates you to contribute to this work? What motivates you to keep going in this movement? So maybe we'll hear from Joy.
Okay. Yes. So for me, I would go back to university days where I used to refer to Wikipedia for my summary. Little did I know that there were contributors behind the scene working tirelessly. And I did that so many times, was so unconscious. And when I started contributing as an editor, I realized that this was actually something that I would want everyone to contribute to. So usually when I'm even training people, when I tell them that everyone in Ghana can be an editor, they are always surprised and confused and wondering how and what content, what area, and they're also wondering who actually checks their information. So for me, basically, it's hinged on the sum of all knowledge, as we always say it. So who is going to contribute? What are we contributing to, and how are we contributing this to the overall goal? And that is why I have diverted a bit to focus on other groups, that is the disability group and also the environmental group, to also contribute their quota, because they feel like this platform is for, sorry, it's for journalists only. It's for people who love to, sorry, my office is almost by the window. So it's for people who love to write only, but then they don't know that they can contribute in audiovisual, they can contribute in images, so many diverse ways. So for me, it's basically to tag along every person to be able to meet the goal of summing all knowledge by everyone.
Thank you, Joy. And I think this is an issue that has been around, at least for the African communities. Oral history. We don't have our history written sometimes, and sometimes it's documented by people who are not us. And to understand that that's okay, that's the sum of knowledge we have for our history. And to know that Wikimedia has such platforms. So that's encouraging. So, Bobby, if you could tell us what motivates you. But right before you tell us what motivates you, Douglas has a question for you. As the president of Wikimedia South Africa, the only chapter in Africa, would you advise user groups? What would you advise user groups to do in order for them to become chapters? How should they structure, or which steps should they take? Bobby, on mute.
I'll first answer Douglas's question, and then after that, I will talk about what motivates me. Well, it's very simple. The reason we are having a chapter is so that we are organized. And there's this thing that is happening, in fact, that we discovered in one of these conferences, is that in South Africa, for an example, we have a lot of sponsors and organizations and corporates that are looking for NGOs to partner with, so that they can run project with for CSIR, corporate social responsibilities, and all of that. But in other African countries, they're actually struggling, to find what we call resource mobilization in language that they use in NGOs. So for us, we have all of these organizations, all of these corporates that wants to come on board, and they want to partner with us. They want to give us money. Sometimes we say no because of the reasons why they want to give us that money. So it is very important to have an organized structure, such as a user group or a chapter, to have a bank account, to have a board, to take decisions, in terms of such things, administrative stuff, and to have people that are running administration. Since in our case, we have that, someone, but in order for one to be a chapter, really is for you to organize yourself and then to reach out to the affiliations committee, and that's it. Basically, that's it, and they're gonna decide whether you can be a chapter or you cannot be a chapter. And basically, it's people that like yourselves, in Uganda, I think you can be a chapter. And one very important mention is that you don't necessarily need to be a chapter. A user group also suffices. Although we have one chapter, but the functions of a chapter are very much closely related to that of a user group. So the very important thing is to organize yourself. And once you organize yourselves, you register with the laws of the country. For an example, here in South Africa, you are good to go. So it becomes simple for you to to accept money and do everything, especially the money part. Anyway, what motivates me is really not trying so hard. I don't try so hard. And I am a Wikipedian because I want to see content that is notable, that is, African, to be there. And whenever I feel I am tired, I just take a break. And I take a sabbatical without telling anyone. I'm a volunteer at the end of the day, So I don't, focus on Wikipedia so much, but I just move with the flow. I don't even try so hard, I cannot tell you that, no, right now, maybe you might look at my username and you can see that the last article that I edited was about a political article or a historical article, or I don't try to hard to be a Wikipedian. I just be a Wikipedian. And whenever I feel tired, I just take a break. That's it. And that keeps me going, really. That really keeps me going. So yeah, thanks. Over to you.
Bobby, I like that because, sometimes in user groups, you carry the whole world on your shoulders and you feel, if not me, then who? So yeah, that's really some good advice, to take a break. Yeah, so I would like to call upon Reda to tell us what motivates him. And he also has a question for Mariana. So I want to give him this chance. Yes, Reda.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, Reda,
Yes,
we do
okay.
hear you.
So maybe I will start with my question, and I will share my thought about motivation. So I know that you are now from Egypt, and you are geographically from Africa. For us, the Wiki Indaba community is the first victory, but we don't want to stay there. We want more African diversity within the Wikimedia Foundation, and even more. Why not in the future a hub where African can directly influence the direction of the WMF? So my question is, what can we do, in your opinion, to increase the African diversity in the WMF?
Thanks for the question, Greta. I mean, genuinely, I'm still learning. So next week, I'm going to have... Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Rena. I mean, I thank you for the question. I mean, I'm genuinely still learning. So next week, I'm going to be having a meeting with the staff of the foundation who are African, whether they're on the continent or in other places. And I think that I certainly have a lot of questions for them, why they chose to do this, how they work, what they find as easy or as difficult. So, this is the point of I think the listening tour is to understand what are the issues people are asking, what's on their minds. I will say that the experience of speaking to and listening at all of these conferences across the world is that some things, as I said earlier, are very different, but it's amazing how many things are actually quite common in terms of the challenges that volunteers face, the challenges that user groups face, the challenges that communities face. So there's no doubt we are trying to, I think, collectively as a movement, ask what is localized, what is absolutely unique to a language community or a project or a set of individuals. But I think at the same time, as you'll hear, I'm also interested in what are the things that bind us together and that are common. So I don't know yet, but I think that certainly the conversations in the coming weeks will help me answer the specific questions that you're asking about African staff and African contributions at the foundation. I hope that's not a non-answer. It's just true. I'm going to be meeting with them and I'll learn a lot more.
Thank you so much, Mariana.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's truth. And Reda, I hope you got your answer. We're soon coming to the end of the session, but
Yes.
Faith has a question for Bobby. What measures have you set out to increase the movement in South Africa, then across towards Africa as a way of increasing Pan-Africanism and Africa-capitalism?
Sounds like a political question, you know. Yeah, but anyway, what we do really, as I've mentioned earlier on, is we look at different ways. First, we think what are the gaps, and then in order to close those gaps, what is it that we can do? And the measures that we've taken really has been wiki-centric many a times, but we see that they are not working at some points, you know, because Wikipedia sometimes can be mundane, you know, for a newbie. In fact, even now that we as, you know, old Wikipedians, you know, are very much free, you know, to navigate our space around Wikipedia. But if you invite a newbie to be on Wikipedia, it's difficult. But some of the measures that we thought would work best would be to go where people are. So the use of social media and the focus of the thinking, changing of the thinking that a Wikipedian is not only someone that types on a computer, but someone that also can contribute in many ways, you know, like running outreach. Outreach is also very much important, you know, to introduce Wikipedia. And there's another thing, because the focus really recently on Wikipedia South Africa that we've realized that we need to focus on has been the newbies. You know, why are people not joining Wikipedia anymore? So one thing that we have managed to, you know, to do is to set a group of Wikipedians that will act sort of like a sponge, you know, to welcome those Wikipedians, those newbies, you know, so that when someone comes and they're new, they write a very long article, and then it has one mistake, and then you find an experienced Wikipedian, we take that article for a speedy deletion, the entire thing, instead of just correcting that mistakes. So it'll be us that go there and just help that newbie. So we are engaged in such kinds of measures in order to increase the African community, especially the newbies. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely, Bobby. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We can move to the lounge and continue this discussion in the lounge. For now, this session has come to an end. Thank you for your participation. Thank you, Reda, Joy, Geoffrey, Bobby, and Mariana. It has been great. Let's see each other in the lounge and look on your schedules to see the next sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.